Hello folks, Alex here. This is Alex Unabridged, and today I've got my July TBR and pile of possibilities. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. So yes, July is almost upon us. It is the 29th of June today as I film this. So only a couple of days left of June, and then I'll be into some new stuff for July. July is going to be a little bit more of a relaxed month, I think, for me, in terms of a quieter month of reading. I've had 3 months of quite a lot of kind of, sort of intense reading for events and things like that. Like April was 2 events, Old School April and Trans Girl April. Then May was meant to be quiet, and then Horror Mayhem happened. So I read a lot for that. And then June, I've just been trying to get through as much LGBTQIA plus fiction and non-fiction as possible. So I've been going at it a bit hard recently with the reading, and I need a little bit of a chill month. I need to just, put on the brakes a little bit, because Garb August is coming up obviously in August, and that's going to be packed. I'm just going through my book list for that at the moment of things I want to read, and it's long. I'm going to have to narrow it down a little bit, but yeah, it's gonna be packed. So I just want to have a nice chill month for July. There will be the usual adventures in genre stuff, which I'll go through first in a minute, and then I've got some potential picks from my library of things that I own but have not read yet. A collection of books which is getting larger and larger and larger, and my piles of shame, shall we say, are getting a little bit out of hand. So it's about time that I actually just started to chip away at some of that. So without further ado, let's have a little look at the adventures in genre picks for July. July is going to be for Junior Jeepers Creepers, which of course is middle grade and YA horror. As you'll be aware if you watch the channel reasonably regularly, I am a fan of horror. It's my most read genre, always has been, and that's been the case since I was like late teens, early 20s. But when I was a kid, I very rarely touched horror at all. I read a couple of point horror books, but even some of those were a little bit much for scaredy cat little me at that age. I got scared very, very easily, and so I didn't really touch horror much. But my niece, who's 12, and an avid reader, which is great. I love it when kids are just like constantly, wanting another book to take in. She's really got into her horror, which doesn't surprise me because her dad's horror mad. But she's been telling me about all of these great horror books that she's read, and I've bought her some as well, which she's loved. And so it made me think, I wonder what's out there. I ought to read some of this stuff. So we're going to have a little look at 4 books aimed at some of the younger dark side divers out there. So I've picked the books so that they span kind of the age ranges of sort of middle grade and YA, sort of lower YA. So between the ages of 9 and 17, but sort of each one is a slightly different sort of age guideline based on what the publishers have said. So the first one is called The Dark Deep, which is aimed apparently at kids of age like 9 to 11 years. This is a sort of middle grade novel about a group of friends who discover a mysterious supernatural pool in their small town, and they explore its powers and face dangerous creatures and uncover dark secrets, which leads them into a thrilling and unpredictable adventure. So yeah, I found this in the library. I went to my local library and just had a scout through their very, very good children's and young adults section, and liked the sound of this. It's got that kind of creepy vibe to the cover, and it's, you know, kind of creepy water stuff as well. Which is something I find, horror and water is always a little bit rough for me, especially if there's creatures in it. So we'll see if a book that is aimed at 9 to 11-year-olds can creep the hell out of a 42-year-old. So that'll be a nice little experiment. So that is the first one. The second one, another library book, is The Monsters We Deserve by Marcus Sedgwick. And this is apparently aimed at 12 to 17-year-olds. So a bit more into the YA here. And this is a gothic story set in a remote mountain house high in the French Alps, where an author broods over Shelley's creation, i.e. that of Frankenstein. And reality and perception merge, fueled by poisoned thoughts. And it's a book about reason and imagination and the creative act of reading and writing, and celebrates the legacy of Mary Shelley's, you know, classic horror, certainly one of the most influential horror novels of all time. And it kind of, you know, looks at things like humankind and monsters and who creates who. And again, this was one that I saw in the library. I read the blurb on the back and thought, yeah, that sounds really interesting. It's not often that I read gothic stuff, so this will be an interesting experiment for me, and it might mean that I get into it a little bit more if it's pitched at lower age. I struggle with some of the traditional gothic stuff just in terms of language, so it'll be, but I do know Frankenstein, so it'll be very interesting to see what this author's take, riff, influence, you know, what he's done with that story and celebrating that story. So yes, that's the second one. The third one is one that I'm currently waiting for in a package. I ordered some more books from World of Books, which is a fantastic second-hand site online. And that is Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell, which is part of the Red Eye series of books. And this is aimed at 13 to 16-year-olds. This is the one that sparked off this Adventures in Genre, actually. This is one that I bought for my niece, and she absolutely loved. And I bought her others in that series as well, which she's loved all of them. But this one is the one that she said this is her favourite. She's read this multiple times. And so I thought, yeah, I need to check this out. So yeah, Frozen Charlotte is the third one. This is a novel centered around a cursed doll named Charlotte, and that in itself is enough to kind of intrigue me and, you know, make me a little nervous, because again, cursed dolls in horror. Yeah, that's one of my kind of nemesis. So I might find this actually quite scary. So yeah, it says, when Sophie inherits a collection of Charlotte dolls, she unwittingly unleashes a malevolent force that threatens her and those around her. It's apparently got a very good haunting atmosphere and very suspenseful. So yeah, so we'll give that a go, and then I can talk about it with Gracie and yeah, see if it lives up to her hype of it. And the fourth one is an Audible Plus catalogue pick, which I'd had in my wish list for quite a while actually, but didn't realise it was a YA novel. And that is The Girl from the Well by Rin Chupeco. This is aimed at 14 to 17-year-olds, so we're getting slightly further towards the upper end of the YA kind of age bracket. And this is a horror novel inspired by Japanese folklore and follows the vengeful spirit of a Kiku, who hunts down child murderers. When she encounters a teenage boy possessed by a malevolent spirit, Akiku finds herself drawn into a dark and dangerous battle against evil. I think this one might actually be pretty creepy. The little that I know of Japanese folklore and Japanese horror in general is that it is quite eerie, quite creepy, quite different. So yes, I'm very interested to have a listen to that. Yeah, 4 books which I think these will be really interesting to see the difference between horror pitched at a younger age group and the sort of horror that I read for adults. So those are the adventures in genre picks. On to my other stuff. Okay, so the first 3 I've got are TBR books. These will be read in the next couple of weeks because they're library books and they need to go back to the library. So I went in to scout out some of the kids' horror stuff. I inevitably, ended up spending quite a lot of time in the library and looking at other things, and just happened to see a few bits that caught my eye, so I decided to check them out. So first of all, we have got Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. I've had this on my list for a while of something I would like to buy at some stage. And never expected to find it in the tiny little graphic novel section in my library. My library is quite small. It's well stocked, but it's quite small. Saw this and kind of thought, right, well, get that while it's in, while it's available. And this is a series of short stories, which all explore kind of the macabre and unsettling realms of horror. It sort of delves into the depths of fear and darkness and the unknown, and it's beautifully illustrated and quite eerie. It's got very a very kind of human, very warm sort of illustration style, but just really nice colour as well. I'm really interested to have a little look at this. So that is the first one. So as I say, that's got to be read within the next 2 weeks so that I can take it back to the library. The next one I've got is it's part of a pair of books actually that I've got for this month. I was going to save this for later in the year when I do a project reading stuff that I'm actually a little bit scared to read because it taps into anxieties, fears, etc. But I decided to just go for it because it feels like a summary novel, this one. And this is The Meg. I was quite surprised that my library had this, to be honest. This is the first copy that I've seen that doesn't have a terrifying, big, toothy, sharky face on it on the front cover, and I don't want that because I wouldn't even want to have the book in the house, to be honest. Again, if you've watched the channel a bit, you probably know that I've got quite a bad phobia of sharks for the look of them, not because they could tear me to pieces. It's all about the look of them. So I saw this cover and I was like, oh, I can deal with that cover, that's fine. So I decided to get it out, and I thought, yes, I'm going to read this during the summer. In fact, Michelle of Michelle's Melancholia had commented on another video of mine recently saying that this was one that she read last summer and really enjoyed it. It was a good beach read, apparently. I will not be reading it on the beach. That would probably be too much for me, plus I live in one of the most landlocked areas of the UK, so it'd be a little bit difficult. But yeah, I just thought, there's a couple of sharky sort of books that I've got on my list for Garb August as well, so I kind of need to test the waters, so to speak, of, how I do with shark stuff in novel form. So this is the first of, as I say, of a pair of sharky horror books that I will be reading in July. So yes, quite apprehensive, but also strangely intrigued. Yeah, I may regret this. I may live to regret this, but we'll find out. Place your bets now whether this will be a DNF or not. Right. And then the final library book that I got is something completely different, and that is Plum by Holly McNeish. And it's poetry. And I very, very rarely read poetry. I consider myself to be a little bit dense when it comes to poetry. And I think I'm probably doing myself a disservice. I think I just haven't figured out which poets are for me. And also, I've never really studied poetry, and it's one of those where I think it takes practice, doesn't it, with poetry, to kind of learn how to read it and how to kind of appreciate it. Not necessarily in an intellectual way, just in terms of an actual practical, how do I consume this? And I want to get into it a bit more, because some of the stuff that I'm writing is coming out is bits of poetry, especially some of the autobiographical stuff that I'm writing. And I came across Holly McNeish on Instagram doing some spoken word stuff, and instantly just kind of fell in love with it, really. It's very, very funny in parts. It's poignant, it's angry, it's brutally honest. I can connect with it really well. And I think Holly McNeish is probably a similar age to me. A lot of this is about kind of growing up. This is a collection of stuff that she wrote from being sort of a kid through teenage years, 20s, and beyond. I think this is her first book. And yeah, I can just connect with quite a lot of the cultural references, with, certainly with some of the stuff as like the societal expectations of growing up as being a teenage girl in like the 1990s. And yeah, it's the bits that I've heard of hers, and I've had a flick through and read, just quickly read some of the shorter pieces. It's great. This is my kind of poetry, I think. So I want to get through all of this and get inspired, basically, and have a laugh as well, because, as I say, it's very funny. So yes, we'll give that a go, and we'll see if I can finally crack my way into some poetry. Okay, so those are the TBRs. They will be read, as I say, because there's a time limit on them for getting them back to the library. So then, going into stuff that I own, chipping away at these piles of shame. When I say piles of shame, I say it jokingly. They're not shameful. I love having lots of things to pick from. But I do sometimes look at my collections and kind of go, eesh. It's a little bit embarrassing how many that I own that I haven't read. I think my general ratio across all of my audiobooks, ebooks and physical books, I think out of everything that I own, I've probably only read about 25%. So there's some work to do. So first of all, I decided to go and pick one physical book in terms of a novel. So I've decided to go with Lanny by Max Porter. This is one that I bought quite recently, but I'd had on my wish list for quite some time. And it feels like one for the summer for me. It's set in an English village, and it tells the story of a mysterious young boy named Lanny. And it explores themes of community, folklore, and the power of imagination. And it's written really interesting. Its structure is really interesting. It's got kind of a lot of kind of these overlapping, kind of spiraling, overprinted sort of sections. And it's, the general structure of it is quite different as well. It's not just kind of massive chunks of text in the most part, massive pages of text. It's obviously got a very different structure to it. So I think it could be quite magical. I think it could be a really interesting reading experience. And so yeah, as I say, it's intriguing. So I'm going to give that one a go. It's not too long either. So that's the one I've picked from my physical collection. I have also picked some manga. I thought I'll do some graphic novels or manga as well for my physical collection, and that one is get hold of it. That one is Uzumaki, which I have already started. So I thought, yeah, before you start something new, finish one you've already started. And so this is the Junji Ito manga, about the town that is contaminated with spirals. And what I've read of it so far is it's bonkers, it's weird, but it's very good. It's dark. So I'm going to crack on with that and get that finished. This is a quicker read for me. It's a chonker, but it's a quicker read because it's manga. Okay, then we're into the digitals. So I went through my Kindle library, and I have picked one book that I own in my Kindle library, which is The Book of the Most Precious Substance by Sarah Gran. Sarah Gran. This is a sort of literary mystery type story, which follows a private detective as she undertakes a search for a mysterious book rumoured to be the most powerful occult book ever written. And this one has been recommended on various occasions by various different people on BookTube. And I really like the sound of it. I do like a literary mystery. And again, summer feels like a mystery time for me. There's something about the mystery genre that I do like. I do tend to like to read in the summer and summer holidays. So I will give that one a crack. I also decided that I would pick from my ever-increasing list of things that I want to read on Kindle Unlimited. I have a Kindle Unlimited subscription and I need to make use of it, otherwise there's no point in paying for it. And so for this one, I have picked Psychic Teenage Bloodbath by Carl John Lee, which again, I've seen some interesting, and good reviews of recently. This one appeals. This one's extreme horror, but by all accounts, it's not just kind of like shock tactics extreme horror in terms of the extremity is all there is, if you like. This one, it sounds like there's actually more to it, that there's an actual story and something to say, basically. This follows a girl called Susan Ward, who after some sort of an accident has been in a coma for a year. She can't speak, move, or even close her eyes. She hasn't been able to sleep, and she's gone quite mad. But in the dark recesses of her mind, she's discovered a terrifying new power, a new skill, which she uses to exact revenge on those people who hurt her. By all accounts, it is pretty brutal, pretty gory. It intrigues me. It intrigues me in terms of obviously what I think, what has influenced it. Carrie seems to get mentioned in terms of when I've seen other people's reviews in terms of obvious influences, things like that. It looks like it could be really good fun, this one, and I like some, good gory fun horror. If there's more than just like how shocking can we make this, to the writing. So I'll give that a crack and see what I make of it. Okay, then into the audiobooks. Number one on the list, and this is a to be read. I will be bloody well getting through this in July, and that is The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. I've had this since it came out in the beginning of May. I wanted to read it immediately in May. I started it, couldn't get through it because of stuff, other things getting in the way. I couldn't properly concentrate on it and felt I wasn't, kind of giving it due respect in terms of, actually being able to focus properly on it and sit down and enjoy it. So I put it to one side, and then June has been, crazy for, again, reasons. And so July, I'm flipping reading it or listening to it. So that will actually be one of the first ones I go to when July kicks off in a couple of days, because I really want to get through this and properly focus on it. It's about 20 hours long. So I do need to make sure I give it plenty of time. Then the other audiobook is an Audible Plus catalogue one, and that is the partner book to the Meg, and that, of course, is Jaws. I have never read Jaws, because Jaws, the film, is what started my shark phobia. I watched it way, way too young. and that's the genesis point for my real fear of sharks, like the visual fear of sharks. And so I've never read Jaws. So yeah, I think it's about time. I think if I'm going to like go in with like the Meg, I really need to read Jaws as well. So yeah, that's on the Audible Plus catalogue. So I will give that a listen. And if I have time, and this is very much like if I get through The Ferryman and I get through Jaws and I want another audiobook, I thought I would have a little look and see what was the shortest audiobook in my collection. And I can read that. And that happens to be Psycho by Robert Bloch, which I would be very happy to read if I could get through it, if I get time for it in July. So that is my list. That is what I hope to get through in July, but I don't know whether I'll get through all of it. As I say, I'm not going to try and beast my way through stuff in July, because I know August is going to be crazy with reading stuff. So I'm just going to chill out, not put any pressure on myself, and just enjoy some nice and potentially thrilling, potentially scary summer reads. There's quite a lot of horror on this list. So yeah, I might have a few sleepless nights. Well, who knows? We'll see. So yes, so that is my plan for July. July's reading. So my wrap-ups for June, by the way, will come next week. 2 videos, one for the Adventures in Genre, which was LGBTQIA plus romance books, and then another one for everything else. Another video for everything else, other reads, writing, etc., etc. So yes, I think that's it from me today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving me a like and subscribing for more content coming very soon. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.